The fitness world loves to bicker about a lot of things, and usually many things are just completely meaningless.
Let's go.
Welcome back to That Fitness Couple. I am Mike. I'm here with Corey Beth, my wonderful wife, where we love to talk about lifting weights and eating meat. And today we are going to get into one of those arguments that has been around since I think weight training was invented, which is free weights versus machines. And why we think this is such a dumb conversation, but yet it is an important one to have. So I think that where we should start, Corey Beth, is a lot of the common arguments that are given when people talk about the value of free weights versus machines and vice versa.
Let me ask first, why do you think people argue about this?
I think people get caught in an ideology. I mean, it's no different than religion. It's no different than politics. Fitness also has its own ideologies, and you have groups of people, some who make money off of this thing, and because of such, they have tied themselves, their programs, their way of doing things to using certain tools. And listen, there are good arguments on all sides, which we'll get into, but by and large, I think so much of it is ridiculous. And I think that where we become better in terms of a fitness world, if you will, because that's the industry that we live within, where we get better is when we start to understand the value of using different tools and apparatuses.
All right. Well, so what are these free weights slash dumbbell arguers? What are some of the things that they say?
Well, you have the people on the free weight side. So let's just start with all of the free weight arguments for why free weights are far better than
Machines. Let's first define. So a free weight would be a dumbbell,
dumbbells,
barbells,
barbells.
kettlebells.
You got it. A lot of them will say, a lot of the proponents of these will say that these are more functional tools. And by functional, what they mean is you're not locked into a certain way of doing the exercise. You can better mimic the way that your body was intended to move, and that it better mimics the way that our body functions on a daily basis. So we won't go into the counter argument to that just yet, but we'll just let that one sit out there. Another common argument for free weights over machines has to do with muscle activation. That free weights, because there is less stability to the exercises that you're performing, a lot more muscle is required to perform those movements. So now the smaller exercises that we would term your stabilizer muscles are more activated versus using machines where maybe that wouldn't be the case. Another one is that free weights can be more versatile. So it offers a greater range of exercises that you could perform.
Okay. I mean, I would say that those are all fair arguments and good reasons to utilize dumbbells in your program. What about machines? And I'll start with the first one because this is the one that we always hear. Machines are safer.
Yeah. I mean, everybody believes that because you are locked into a seat or there's some type of stability given to your body while you do this exercise, it's safer. And then also typically on machines, there's an end point where the weight stack would lay down and your limbs cannot move any further than where you are in that moment. And for the most part, you should be in a quote safe position. Another one is just that they're easier to use. There's not as much of a learning curve when it comes to machines. You can more or less get in, get set up, and just go. And then lastly, that machines tend to isolate muscles better. So those would be all the arguments for.
Got it. Do you have a personal opinion?
In terms of a personal opinion, one over the other, I do, but I'm going to save it.
Oh, wow. Okay. I didn't think you did. Well, then let's talk a little bit about there's arguments that each person will make against the others. You know, the machine people will say free weights are terrible because of all these things. So what are the biggest arguments we hear here?
Well, we hear that free weights have a higher risk of injury, and that is largely due in part to the fact that there are no stop gaps when you're doing the exercise. Like you have to stop the exercise through a particular range of motion, or when the exercise is done, there's not usually a safe way, if you will, to lay those weights down. So of course that's going to be exercise dependent. Free weights do have a steeper learning curve, so they do require a lot more skill. I mean, you think about exercises such as like Olympic lifts, right? Everybody's watched the Olympics. They've seen people doing these cleans and jerks and snatches. And that's a highly, highly complex move. And not that you see a lot of people in gyms doing that, but you do, however, see a lot of athletes doing this. This has become embedded in the athletic training systems of many colleges, of many professional sports teams, and now is spilling down into high school, junior high, and even younger. So there is a steep learning curve to learning movements like that. Even other exercises like a squat or a lunge. Not everybody anatomically is built perfectly for those exercises. And it's not that they can't do them. It's just that it does take a lot more learning to do them.
Makes sense.
And then next, they would say that free weights make it harder to isolate muscles. So if machines make it easier to isolate muscles, and you really want to target this particular area, that's going to be hard with free weights because, well, you have to bring all these other stabilizers and this skill element into it.
Makes sense. All right. Why should we not use machines according to the free weighters?
Because it restricts your range of motion, because it's not functional in the sense that these movements that you're performing are not on these natural planes of motion that your body would be going through on a daily basis. And that machines don't provide enough variety. You think about our studios, I mean, each one has 9 or 10 pieces of equipment, and there's only so many ways that you could use each one of those pieces of equipment.
That's true. I mean, like the chest press is one plane of movement. Like it's not doing all sorts of crazy things. For me personally, I've heard a lot of these arguments. I've laughed at, as you've brought up, a lot of these arguments. I mean, there's places on the internet where people will argue about this all day long, right? This one's better, this one's worse. And it's interesting because in our fitness franchise, we use both. And for me personally, I will say that I was a big dumbbell or free weight person simply because I didn't know how to use the machine. So I think for a lot of people with machines, you feel intimidated. You're not sure how to use it. And because you don't know how to use it properly, you would just steer clear of it. But having now been comfortable, I have confidence, I know how to use each machine. You know, I like walking up to it in that way, which again, you have to practice it in order for it to become comfortable for you personally. I will always opt for a machine over dumbbells because I prefer actually being able to lift a little heavier weight. Like I know if I'm using a chest press machine, I'll go heavier than if I'm using dumbbells. If I'm doing a shoulder press, like I'm comfortable using a machine because again, if I like peter out and can't do anymore, like the worst thing I do is set it down. Whereas with dumbbells, you know, I'm like, oh man, you'll need somebody spotting you. So I would love to know your take on this argument and where you stand.
Yeah, I largely agree with you. For me, even though I started off as a free weight guy, that's all I ever used for the most part from the age of 13 on to 22. It wasn't until I got introduced to high intensity training and learned how to use machines properly that I started to understand their value. And I think that's where a lot of people are going to sit in this conversation is they see the machines. And actually, I think you have two types of people that in the gym. You have those who, when they first go to a gym, they are intimidated by the free weight section. They realize that it's going to be awkward trying to do some of these exercises because they've never been coached on them. So the machines seem like a safer, easier place to start. The problem with that argument, or that scenario, I should say, is that machines can be just as unsafe as free weights. If you don't set up a piece of equipment properly, you can hurt yourself. Okay? Just in the same way that if you do not perform a free weight exercise properly, you're going to hurt yourself. So this is where I feel that the argument for safety And machines being safer is not always true.
You're going to piss some people off that own machine companies.
No, it's okay. I mean, listen, I love machines, but where I see the value is that I know I could go harder on a machine knowing that if I just totally crap out, I'm not worried about what happens next.
Yeah.
Right. And that's my goal, is like I want to push to that point of failure. But you can push to the point of failure safely with free weights. It just takes a lot more skill to get there. So again, I can go one way or the other. I also think that for me, a lot of this comes down to particular exercise. There are just certain exercises that I will enjoy more on a machine versus doing that same exercise with free weights.
Are there exercises you prefer with free weights over machines? Because for me, it's dumbbell bicep curl. I love bicep curl with dumbbells over using that awkward machine where your elbows go over and you're like, I don't like that at all.
Yeah, for me, I like doing dumbbell lateral raises, whereas I've used a lot of different lateral raise machines, and like it never quite feels right. And I know the purists out there in the high intensity space can be like, well, you're just not setting up the machine properly. No, I get it. Like I've done it. I know how to set up the machines. I just like the feel
I think that's what it is. Yeah.
of using dumbbells better. And that is one of those scenarios where as you're reaching fatigue, you can make a certain micro movement that allows you to maybe squeeze out another repetition and maybe not as isolated as those previous reps, but it makes you feel good that you could continue to push through and kind of grind it out. There's tricep exercises. Like I love doing a set of dumbbell skull crushers. That exercise hits me in a way that any type of tricep extension machine that I've used, or even using cables, which, this is always another thing that I have to laugh at and I got to bring up, is that the people on the free weight side will always say free weights are better, yet these are the same people who are using cable machines to work their triceps and their back. They're not doing dumbbell rows all the time or bent over barbell rows. They're using the pull down machine. They're using the row machine. And this is just also why I kind of chuckle at the bickering that goes on, because that's a great example of how both sides can be correct. Like, can a bent over barbell row be a productive back exercise? Yes. But also, what are the limitations of it? Like, it's productive in the sense that you're working a lot of muscles of your back. You're not just working your lats and your rhomboids and your traps. Like the muscles of your lumbar have to work really hard too, if you're going to maintain proper body position, which you're not going to have that if you're doing, say, a set of pull downs or a seated row. But when you're doing that seated row or pull down, do you get a better feel and work your lats more effectively? And I think most bodybuilders especially would tell you, heck yeah, you do. So this is why I think the argument is silly, because there is such value to doing both. And while the one side will say part of the problem with machines is that it locks you into position and you're working through the same plane of motion. It's like, okay, there's some truth to that, but you doing your barbell bench press every single week is the same exact situation. Like, it's the same scenario. I think that there's value in definitely rotating through or varying the tools that you use for similar exercises, which is why I do agree with dumbbells. You can do a variety of different chest presses. You just angle the bench differently and you're doing an incline press or flat, in some instances a decline. And that's great. Have a lot of variety. You can just simply change your arm position to change the plane of motion. And it's good to get out of that routine of doing the same plane of motion over and over and over again. But in the same sense, it's like if you work through one of those planes of motions incorrectly, you're also going to do a lot more damage. Whereas with the machine, you may be more locked in, if you will, to that plane of motion. And at the end of the day, when it comes down to the topic of safety, which I know a lot of personal training studios and such will love to promote as like a unique part of their routine, that being safety, it's like, it's actually on the lower rung for me in terms of importance, because the safety comes from the execution. It's not about a particular exercise or whether that exercise is a free weight or a machine. It's more in the execution. It's in the practice. It's in the setup. It's in the attention to details.
Totally makes sense. Well, I don't know, Mike. You may have effectively brought the free weight people and the machine people together. Maybe not. They may still have their bickering and arguments online. But I do think that this is a really, really helpful piece for the avid gym goer or the person that's interested in, or again, people that are just afraid of doing the wrong thing. Doing an exercise is the right thing. You choose the tool you use to execute it, just in the same way I choose to use a hard or a soft spatula in the kitchen when I'm whipping up scrambled eggs for the kids, right? It still gets the job done. It still is a tool in your arsenal. And again, if you can get a trainer or a program to show you how to properly use said tool, I think that always puts you heads and shoulders above others.
Well, I mean, if you even just look at what we do in studio, it's usually about probably like a 70-30 or an 80-20 of machine-based exercises to free weight and body weight exercises. But we also have an online program that is almost exclusively based around using dumbbells and body weight exercises. People get equal results from each, and all of the scientific data backs that up, that there is no difference with respect to overall results of using one tool versus the other. It'll always come down to the principles of exercise, and intensity is the primary driver. So as long as you're using machine and you're doing it intensely, you're going to build muscle and strength. If you're using dumbbells and you're doing it intensely, then you're going to build muscle and strength. And then a lot of it just comes down to personal preference. There are certain people that I love the feel of a really good machine. Like, I love the feel because I do feel the muscles that I'm targeting a lot more. But this is where I'm also going to counter the argument that, oh, you don't work stabilizer muscles, because there are hundreds of muscles in our body. And some of them are so small and so minute and do little things. Like, you think about the muscles that you use just to move your pointer finger. And the argument that free weights help you to get to those stabilizer muscles better, it becomes an irrelevant conversation when you're pushing your muscles to fatigue. Because what's going to ultimately happen is, like, yes, that muscle that you are, quote, isolating may take on the brunt of the work. But as you're fatiguing, what do you think you're calling upon to continue to try to grind through every rep thereafter? You're still pulling in all of these smaller muscles. And so this idea that you need to use free weights to work those stabilizers kind of gets diminished when you're working at a high intensity. And then the other argument that always gets diminished when comparing free weights to machines is that of, like, the functional aspect. Like, what is functional training? I mean, even if you're lifting dumbbells, like, think about dumbbell exercises that you may do, or any free weight exercise. Like, when you do squats, how many times a day do you put something across your back and squat down to the ground? Like, you're not doing that in your daily living. Like, if we wanted to truly be functional about our exercise, then we'd have weighted plates in the cabinet that we have to reach up and grab in an awkward position. We would just focus on carrying around really heavy shopping bags, or at least most of you ladies would be focused on carrying heavy shopping bags. You'd be doing all these things in these awkward angles. So we don't do that with weights. And you could also argue that the way our body functions is when we perform a movement, our muscles simply contract and we go through that motion. No matter how it is that you strengthen those muscles, it's going to make you more functional. You don't have to do a certain twisting while weighted exercise and bending backwards and reaching across your body and touching your toe and picking up a weight off the ground and then swinging it behind your head and then doing a squat for it to be functional. It's like, you just need to strengthen your muscles, and then when you're doing your activities of daily living, like, you'll be more functional.
Okay, I just love that you've said that. I'm smiling because I've never resonated with this, like, functional training methodology. And for me, being an avid skier, Like I'm gonna do leg press and leg extension and leg curl, and wow, I
But that
ski.
doesn't mimic skiing.
Yeah, it doesn't.
How
mimic
is that going to
skiing
make
at
you a
all.
better skier?
My legs, my quads are stronger, my hamstrings are stronger, my calf muscles are stronger. Like I don't get sore. Like I can ski all day long and hard, and I'm not sore at the end of the day. Like I could keep going. I also see that when I'm walking. Doing a leg press enables me to go for long walks with our kids and not be fatigued, or run up the stairs in the house and not be fatigued. So there's a lot of arguments that are entertaining. And I think if we can boil away a lot of the arguments, it's like just resistance train.
That's it.
That's it.
Use whatever tools you have available or whatever tools you prefer. Doesn't matter. Machine, free weight, body weight, TRX bands, resistance bands,
barbells.
kettlebells, like whatever. But again, whatever you do.
Train intensely.
Exactly.
Let's go.